Hello everyone, I am so very pleased with my last few videos where I am sending an email to myself every day from a server I control. So I am creating a Homunculus Majordomo in my life. I'll be explaining that on many videos to come. But before I do this reading, I figured I'd pop over here and just jump into that home cloud server, which is also a Linux container, which is also running a long-running script right here. And to see it, we screen-ls, that lists our screens. There's our screen. We can screen reattach to pulse, and we can see the every 2 seconds timestamp go by. Now, full disclosure, I restarted this just before the video, which is why you saw that little gap at the top. But what I'm going to do is just cut this rate at which it does this pulse down to a much slower rate, maybe 6 per day. So I see email 6 pulses, email 6 pulses. So while you log in, there might not be anything being written actively out to the screen. Dividing a day into 4 quarters is, I think, a good starting point. And maybe I'll teach you some other things along the way, like modulo math and stuff for counting steps in a loop. Okay, so let's change that frequency before your eyes. See how that's running? Now, because it's running as a service, mind you, remember, because this has been started by systemd, Linux's new Linux service system. So at very least, you can always close that and you can always reopen that and you can get back into the screen session that was running. That's pretty cool. You can always monitor your software. But just as importantly, if you interrupt it with a Control-C, that actually terminated that screen. So when you reattach, it's freshly running again. If you try and reattach too quickly, Control-C, pulse, it's not there. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. Oh, okay, it's there now. Every 5 seconds, this restarts. So that gives us a very unique opportunity to kind of do some real-time script stuff, because when you Control-C and it restarts, it also reloads off of the hard drive. Services don't, but what the service is referencing does. The actual service here is what systemd runs by that config file that's dropped in place from the prior videos. This program, which we can find by opening another connection to our cloud server, cding into pulse, ls, this is our file, we can vim that, vim pulse.py, and we can just go down here to where that every 2 seconds is set, and we can say every 1 second. Control-C out of this, go back into it after 5 seconds. And that rate that's being written out just doubled. It's every 1 second instead of every 5 seconds. I really want to go the other direction. How many seconds is 6 hours? I should be able to do that math in my head, but you know what? I'm just going to go over here and pop up a calculator and do the easy math of 60 seconds. Well, I could probably change that to hours, every 6 hours, right? Wouldn't that be I don't need to do seconds math and just change that number. Just changes to hours. Every 6 hours, do that printing out. So you're not even really going to see anything when we go back over there. Save that. Control-C out. Go back in. It's just going to be like that, and I'm not really going to see anything for 6 hours until it gets to the first one, because every 6 hours on the 6 hour, boom. So let's do something a little more interesting before we wrap the video up. I could do the dramatic reading over here of my daily journal. I think I will, but I'd like to show you the modulo. I promise that. So is it modulus or modulo? But at any rate, it's really easy to implement. We will change hours back to seconds, and we will have a much time accelerated effect of those pulses. Whereas the pulses before would be 4 pulses in the course of a day. And then the email, 4 pulses, email, 4 pulses, email. It's just going to be the 4 pulses over and over. And you're not going to be able to tell one from another once it gets past, well, already you can't, right? Just because of seeing the beginning you can, right? Relative and fixed positions. So let's make each one of these look a little bit different, right? We're already doing F-string formatting. I'll make this a little bigger, and I'm sorry, I'll change that blue background soon. I use that blue background because it tells me that I launched this from a PowerShell. I'm using the SSH program through PowerShell to get in here. I don't know, I'll cover that in some other video. But it gave me a blue screen for now because of the way I've been changing to using SSH instead of a local terminal. Right, so that's why my journal has a black background, because it's running local. It's running on a real Windows subsystem for Linux instance here on my laptop. This is Linux running on my laptop. These, all 3 of these blue ones, are Linux running on a cloud server, a different piece of hardware. I didn't mean to run that. I meant to vim it. The lazy. vimpulse.py. Oh, it's already being edited. Where is it? It's this one? No, it's this one. No, it's this one. No, where is it? Am I already editing that? Here's this one. This is, oh yeah, that is Pulse. That's Pulse. That's the one. Right. Yeah, the function is in there, clearly. Oh, well, that's interesting. Global variables in a scheduled thing. I guess so. It's a counter of how many times something has run using a global counter. So up here, we're going to add a global counter. GC. I'll just call it count. G-count. Global counter, counter, counter. Counter equals 0. Every time it runs through job, which has outgrown the word job, it's now pulse. That is not a job, that's just a pulse. So we're scheduling the pulse. And every time it goes to the pulse, it's already a nice F string, right? So that means I can put other things in here, like I could just say foo. You understand that about F strings. Between these quotes is really a string. You put strings between quotes. But because we have the F here, we can use Python variables inside of here, inside curly quotes. So anything in curly brackets, curly braces, is Python code that will get replaced in the string. That's F strings. So if I were to keep foo in there and we were to Control C that and then go back into it, there's foo to the left of the stamp, right? And so on. So I'll leave that displaying for a second. We are going to replace foo with the value of counter. Now, global and local is always an issue in Python, but we can be real explicit about it by saying global counter. So even though you don't have to, because global scope variables will leak into functions, if you're explicit about it, there is no misunderstanding. And then because you're incrementing it, even though it's global and you're incrementing it inside of a function, it should still increment globally. So global, no, it's not global, it's counter, equals counter plus 1. There's another way to write this, but I'm going to do it like that, just to be extremely explicit about what's going on here. And instead of initializing counter at 0, I initialize it at 1, so the first time it's run. And so now we should be able to Control C out of that. And instead of foo coming before the date, it's going to be the number of times it has run. Now you might say, how is that going to be helpful in grouping things together? by 4, right? Because 4 pulses per day every 6 hours. You're going to see pulse 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's going to repeat. It's not going to repeat now. It's going to go to 5. So the question is how to make it repeat, how to make it know 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it might even be interesting to see that global counter to see how many total. So I'll leave that in here, and I'll make this a really meaningful set of numbers coming before the time stamp. So for that, I'll make another. Oh, it doesn't even need to be another counter. You just do some real-time value changing. Quarters equals counter percent time, which is the modulo function, 4. So it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So trust me on that. So we'll just make the video a little quicker, and we will take that value and add 1 to it. So instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the counter starting at 1 might throw that off, but let's take a look. Counter and quarter. Now, it is worth noting that we really need to do these things in the right order. It needs to be encountered first, because it not being global, quarters needs to actually have been referred to before it's referred to, defined. Yeah, all right, Control C, rerun. Now you'll notice what I'm doing there to get back in, screen reattach, it's not really rerunning. And that instant termination means there's something wrong, right? So I can try and run it the old-fashioned way. And there, no such file or directory. Oh, CD pulse, then run it. Yep, there we go. I just had a misspelling. I prefer quarter to quarters. So the service, meanwhile, I might have done wrong by adding 1. All right, so I can test it like this, the old school way, but meanwhile the service is busy in the background trying to restart it every 5 seconds, so I could just alternatively just reattach and see if it successfully did it, which it did. 2, 3, 4, although that's the old one. I Control C out of that once, and it will reload the new code. There we go. Now we should see our, soon to be day, quarter day heartbeats broken into 1, 2, 3, 4. So whereas the counters are the same as each other on the first pass, right? Because on the first pass, the 1, 2, 3 of the global counter is the same as the 1, 2, 3 of the modulo counter. Oh, that's where. Yeah, because when it loops around, it becomes. So how would I fix that? Because modulo 4 is 0. you know what? 80-20 rule. The code is simple. One interesting thing you can do is on that condition, because you can detect that condition, right? So you can print something else. You've already set the quarter to its value here. It could be before or after you increment. It doesn't really matter. But you can say if not quarter. So not quarter refers to where it's 0. That's a not. That'll evaluate. That's the same thing as if quarter equals 0, right? If quarter equals 0. But the more Pythonic way to do this thing when using the modulo operator there is just to say if not quarter, right? Because zeros evaluate negative. Print a space like that, all right? So now we control C out. We go back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My counting is faster than the computer's. Pulse 1. Pulse 2. Pulse 3. Pulse 4. And the space, see there, now it breaks it up real nice. And that's pretty good. You'll see the global counter to the left. You'll see quickly whether you're on 1, 2, 3 or 0. I'll probably fix that, but this is the kind of thing where we're talking about with baby steps in multiple passes. So this project is pretty much done, besides changing the time increment on the schedule from seconds back to hours. And now I just control C that, and I leave that running now, and it will email me once per day as it's intended to. And in between each email, there will be 4 time pulses. Mission accomplished. Do I do my reading here? Give you the broader vision of what I'm doing? It's not just a tech project. Wouldn't it be nice to have a little help? Wouldn't it be nice if it were not a human nor a paid service? Wouldn't it be nice if you could grow it yourself in baby steps while learning a valuable lifetime trade in the process? All right, I just need to read my own writing, right? Well, the time is right. The time is right to take up Linux, Python, Vim, and Git as if taking up standard carpenter tools. The time is right to ignore the world of web dev in favor of stuff that doesn't radically change every 5 years. The time is right to learn hammers and nails before power tools, right? You can start saying no to cloud services who are trying to get your money. They are predisposing you to do things their way through their APIs, products, and interfaces. This will lock you in and reduce your freedom. The time is right to adopt a more free and open source software reality and to learn how to navigate with the keys. Oh, did I do a whole screen down? I think I did. Yuck. Well, that gives you a preview of how much you're going to be sitting through anyway, and I just go through it quick. Use FOSS, build on FOSS, and not all FOSS is created equal, so work with what's both likely to stick around a long time as if fundamental, and which is well suited to you, is comfortable, or brings you joy. If you can't take that, they can't take that away from you, but cloud vendor providers can. If you learn on their platforms, they can take away your particular instances of running systems, and they can take away the relevancy of your very skills by changing their APIs over time. So where to begin? Build things now. Build them using these principles. Carry it out like performance art. Yes, that is my intent. That's what you see me doing right now. My tech craftsperson thing as performance art. add more intent to your life, do more real-time idea capture, and make those captured ideas easier to leverage. Align small steps to righteous feedback loops. So much of this starts with just sending yourself an email every day that you can start to customize. Use this email to remind yourself to do certain things. Go through my existing videos and extract main themes of the videos I've done. Use these main themes to structure my website, mikelev.in, right? In case you follow me, I'm talking about mikelev.in. Lean on GitHub for a while, but move towards running my own GitLab. Do this in a meaningful way that will last the rest of your life, even while living a dynamic lifestyle and using certain cloud services. Short term, shortish term. Who knows when you'll ever be off of GitHub and Microsoft Windows and stuff, but you might as well make it one of your goals. Cover the topics most near and dear to your heart. Work the questions that you feel you were put on this earth to address. Don't forget the walrus and the carpenter, right? Don't forget the carpentry skills that I covet, right? What do I care about? I would be something and someone and somewhere very different in life if it weren't really the love of the infotech-like skills that I appreciate, I covet it. I'm jealous of it in certain other people who have it in excess, and I want to develop it in myself. And don't forget how carpentry skills are often and greatly incompatible with tech. These very same skills that I covet change so friggin' rapidly. Address the conundrum address that conundrum. Address how facing that conundrum head on feels so much like my thing. My heartbreak over my beloved Amiga computer tells me so, right? I really went through something in my head when the Amiga went away, and that's trying to tell me something about like relationship to tools and stuff, right? So anyway, no world or life or situation or whatever is perfect. Yeah, so I'll cover the 80-20 rule a lot. And going down rabbit holes knowingly and having contingency plans to get out from those wonderlands if it runs too deep. How deep does that hole go? Who's to say? And nearly everything is a matter of saying how much is enough. So we talk about thresholds. Thresholds are such a interesting pervasive topic. Certain things run through everything as universal topics. Thresholds are one. Where the analog world crosses over to the digital, there are thresholds. Continuity that has any measurable difference in its content can be digitized. Anything that feels like a substrate or a medium that has a quantifiable attribute to it, rippliness, intensity, whatever, it can be sampled. And you can make those sampling rates so small in the digitizer that it starts to look like continuous stuff again. It's like calculus. So granularity is definitely a thing. Granularity is where APIs, application program interfaces, become very important. Choosing your operating system and programming language is very much like choosing the granularity of your digital life. Plus, because things change so fast in tech, it's like you're talking about something with granularity that can quickly become a liquid and render irrelevant everything you know. Let's call it solvency. Granules can dissolve. When choosing your tech platform, you might make sure you're not choosing one built from rapidly dissolving granules. That is, if you're a slow learner like me, and when it dissolves, it's a setback, when the reset button of tech really gets on your nerves. Some people pick up new languages and frameworks super easy. And what I'm saying won't make sense for them. But for those of us who like to learn more slowly but to learn better. The accessibility building up in us through training, through muscle memory is important, right? Becoming a master of fewer things. We're banking on that to help us earn a living, find happiness in this world and such. So there's a split in nature. There's thresholds, there's all humanity. And then somewhere along the line, there's those people who can pick up languages and tools quite fast. They might not learn them as deep, but they can use the 80-20 rule to use them well. And then they can switch on and pick up another tool just as easily. There's a lot of people like that on Node.js these days. They were on Nginx yesterday. They're on Node.js today. There'll be some, although Node can work with Nginx. Yeah, I understand. You glue together parts and components, but having to do so constantly is churn, and it's not suitable for those people like me who not only value the craftsmanship feeling, the feelings of being a craftsperson, but who need that because that's how we're wired, right? One focuses on fundamentals, or at least the unchanging illusion of them, the illusion of unchanging fundamentals, while the other focuses on making the most useful work at hand easiest, right? These are the two vibes, right? People who take a long time to learn well, to accumulate muscle memory, to become better at times, samurai and all that. They're the slow learners who lean towards the more old school tools that I appreciate. Then there's the people who can, just show me what I'm using, show me where the project is, and I'll just figure it out fresh every time and not rely on muscle memory, on going, having done it 1,000 times before. Those people tend to be multilingual and such. Fundamentals in any discipline, even physics, may be an illusion because every fundamental element could actually be made up of seemingly infinite number of yet smaller particles. How would you know? By advocating Linux, Python, Vim, and Git as the illusion of tech field fundamentals, I'm suggesting that you might shut up and calculate. Yes, the very alluring world of web dev is out there, but who wants to program genies, then be on the hook for everything the genie is supposed to be capable of doing? That's what web dev is. You're developing something that takes requests and serves requests separate from you necessarily being there. That's one type of automation, but it's not the only type. Why not conserve your energy for yourself? Why not build something that works on an extraordinarily different model than web dev? Just for yourself. Okay, I've got to start doing this. I've got to start solving some real world problems for myself. Journaling in itself is one of these things. So even just this video is helping, but there's also running code. There's also the concrete deliverables that will go into the email I send myself every day. That's the meat. That's what's going to probably be more interesting to you in the long term. Keep this free-flowing feeling that I have going here, but also get organized using my website, mikelev.in and such, right? Repetition and inefficiency versus optimization and deduplicating. That's going to be coming up a lot. Repetition and inefficiency, that's learning. That's the process of learning. That's how we live. We live sequentially. Morning, afternoon, evening, night, sleep. Morning, afternoon, evening, night, sleep. It's like a log file with a rhythm, a repeating pattern, just like that script I have running. That's how life is lived. But when you do certain things intermittently or regularly along that timeline, you like to organize that thing there in that moment on the timeline, so that moment on the timeline gets expanded out so that you can do more, be more effective, because you've optimized things, because you've gotten rid of duplicates, because you can go from idea to actualization more quickly. So that's what we're doing with this email, this Homunculus Majordomo. So we're going to mold it from clay and let it run the household. Maybe in a few decades, I wish, let it do my taxes. But we can start playing with those ideas today. Things change so fast. Why start a new endeavor? in a new field that's just going to be totally different by the time you master it. That's the problem with trying to master tech. There's too many kinds of tech to choose from, and each type changes so fast. Sending yourself an email every day will not change anytime soon. Start out by leaning on the Google infrastructure, and I'll maybe change that eventually to get rid of the Google email server. But I'm in no hurry. It's in the same category as getting GitHub out of my life, right? Maybe someday with GitLab, but no time soon. That's a big win for Microsoft there. When they make the cloud services just so good that you use it as the infrastructure of your everyday life. Just know that you are, and know how you could break those dependencies, right? So we switched to proprietary systems where somebody else cooks the meal and we just enjoy it. Sometimes frameworks are made to help us do our own cooking, but frameworks go in and out of fashion even faster than the tech they're based on. So you have to hope the low learning curve of the frameworks makes up for their etherealness, right? That's an argument on the behalf of the fast learners who just pick up the next framework and the next after that. Well, everything's a framework. A framework is just another word for the granularity of your system, whether you're at the base fundamental system like Python or built on top of it like pandas and requests. So, System D, the thing that we're doing the scheduling with over here, right? When I go in here, that thing that keeps restarting. Oh, what did I do there? Screen R, pulse screen is terminating. Screen reattach pulse. Oh, I want to keep it running as a service. I think I'm keeping it running. But anyway, the thing that keeps it running as a service here, the thing that allows me to just, oh yeah, it was blank. It's not going to show anything now for a very long time the way it's running. The heartbeat isn't there except for every 6 hours. So, yeah, the thing that's running that is a framework called System D, and it's going to be with us for a long time because it's included with most Linux distros today. So that makes it fundamental. Dive into more System D and Linux daemons. I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of the name daemons and talking about Maxwell's daemons and Laplace's daemons. And yes, that's how Linux daemons were in fact named, after those and not the more, ominous connotation. And for those who don't know, Maxwell's daemon is a thought experiment on entropy, and Laplace's daemon, which is actually older, is a thought experiment on determinacy, a Newtonian clockwork deterministic universe, where the daemon knows everything that's going to happen because it can be calculated from initial conditions. So that's those two daemons. So how appropriate to name this blog post after homunculuses and majordomos. We are in a race to cast spells. This spell casting will mostly be in the castles of the corporate elite, but every once in a while it comes downstream. So we're doing that downstream stuff, power in the hands of the people, right? It's not really communism, but I am about the means of production coming into the hands of the people, right? I've been itching to do machine learning, but the APIs are only becoming stable and approachable enough for me to be interested. Thank you, Jeremy Howard and folks like him. So go there sooner rather than later with real world projects. What is someone who craves the satisfaction of craftsmanship and the mastery of tools who wants to be in the field of tech to do? 9 times out of 10, you'll just be slammed into the fads of Node.js and web development and won't be much part of my audience. But if you're looking for something a little different, a little fundamental-esque, and which will probably last you a lifetime, then follow along. Follow along with what? Well, my next steps are to do a little SEO in my email that gets sent to me every day. And instead of an attachment of cats that don't exist, I'll send to myself an attachment of a snapshot of a Google search. There's a lot of potential ways to go about that. I can do one long page as a PDF or a GIF or something. Or I could do store the very DOM. I could store the not the view source HTML, but more like all the rendered JavaScript and the entire object model. I could store that, email that as a zip attachment. There's a lot of choices here. I'm going to also have that task do a little web crawl of a site. Go to a site, check a few things about the site, extract a little report, put that report, probably as formatted HTML, right into that email. So it'll say something about a site from two sides, the site itself based on the crawl and the site in search based on a Google search. And then I'm going to send myself this very to-do list to make sure I compel myself forward. So talk about getting meta, right? These will probably be the first 3 things on that email that I try and remind myself to do. That my homunculus who is guarding me will say, hey, guard your self-determinism. You think you are in control of your own fate? One of the things you want to do is to take a snapshot of Google search every day and send you the results in email to keep it top of mind awareness. How is such and such site doing on such and such keyword? Perchance to improve the performance over time. And likewise, what is the state of the site? Why is it in that position? Are there things wrong with your site? Scorecard stuff. And yeah, there you have it. Hope this was enjoyable to you. Hope you learned something. And I hope that you subscribe. And at some point, I'll start asking for donations. I mean, I do all this for my day job. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. See, I went through lunch and time to wrap up and get back to the main gig. See you soon.